Hi everybody, I'm Bob Principi, home improvement correspondent for NBC and host of The Home Show. Today we're going to show you a video with Mike Ryle of Dream Spas and Pools, and he's going to take you through the process of the installation of AquaGuard.
Hi, I'm Mike Ryle with Dream Spas and Pools. I'm one of the certified installers for AquaGuard, and we're doing this training video to help some of the new installers or maybe get some tips to some of the older installers that have been putting this stuff in. This pool is an existing pool, and it's of a vintage age, and it needs some repairs. So we're going to fix this pool by using the new AquaGuard and putting it on it. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips. One of the first things I do when I come into one of the pools is I take a pole like this that's solid, and you can listen to the plaster. And what we're concerned about is if the gunite pool is gunite and then it's hand plaster over the top of it. If we can't stabilize the plaster underneath the AquaGuard, then the AquaGuard is going to fail. So it's our job to go in and make sure that that is stable and it's adhered properly to the concrete or the gunite. And one of the ways I used to do is if I use a pole, and if you can listen, hear that sound, this is solid. But as I come over, I can find a place that's failed. You can actually hear the difference in it and the sound of it. And I know at this area right in here, and I can just go around the edge of it, make a mark just about where I'm at, just an area about like this. Once we find one of these areas, then we're going to remove them because they're already they've already laminated from the concrete. As you can see right here in front of us here, we've already found one that we've done. And we've tapped it, found out where it's at, and then we can check the underneath, and you can see the underneath is solid by the sound of it. And we've worked our way around it so that we're back into good material. Once we get done with this, what we're going to do is we're going to take and cut these edges so they're in a vertical position with a diamond cutter. Remove this stuff, remove it out into a solid base so that it'll stick properly. Then we're going to acid etch this, and we're going to come back in with this particular holes the size. We use a fibercrete, and we'll hand trowel in a fibercrete. We want to leave the fibercrete in not in a real rough, but almost in a fuzz condition. So you'd consider it like a second trowel of concrete. When I second trowel it, that means it's not finished yet, but it's getting close. Because we want a rough surface. We don't want to seal the surface off to keep the water from getting in. We want to leave the surface exposed so we can get back into it. When we're installing the AquaGuard, if we're going to use the existing tile, we're going to come up here with the AquaGuard, and we want to undercut this tile that's going to stay. What we want to do is do like a plunge cut straight in, about 1/4 of an inch, and then bevel it back on a 45-degree angle on this plane right here. When we do this, this allows the AquaGuard to come up and actually go in and seal off. Because remember, if we get any moisture behind the AquaGuard into the plaster, existing plaster, it's going to fail. So you need to seal it off. So by doing this cut back in here, then we can make it a watertight situation. If you're not going to use the existing tile and you want to retile the pool with new tile, one of the ways of doing it is bringing the AquaGuard right up to right underneath the coping stone or bullnose, and then come back in and lay your tile on top. When you're covering the existing tile like we're doing on this pool, you can see where the old tile is oxidized and it has residue from calcium and alkalinity on it. We're going to take and surface it. We're going to take all the surface off there using a grinder, and you can see how rough it is so that our new epoxy is going to stick and bond to this properly. If your pool has a painted surface like this one does, we're going to have to prep it. And what's happened with this is that they originally had plastered it, and for some reason either they changed the colors or they had some small cracks or hairline cracks they wanted to fix in it to update this pool. They had painted it. And we've made a determination that it's not a latex paint or rubberized paint, and we found out that it is an epoxy paint. So we need to remove this because what's happened is it's oxidized. And you can see where it's on my hand where it's oxidizing. So we need to remove that oxidation so we have a clean surface so our epoxies will properly bond to the surface. And what I do is I use a 7-inch grinder, and I start out with a finer grit paper like a 32, and then I work it down. And we found out on this particular pool that our production rate is the highest when we get about 24 grit. Now I can go down to 16, but the problem with 16 is it'll remove it faster, but then it gives me a rougher surface and it actually gouges it. And in those gouges I have to come back and fix before I can put my epoxies on, or during the process I have to get them filled. And you can see on the back of your grinding discs, they say right on them what they are. This particular one's a 36, and this one here is a 24. The 24 being a finer grit, or a coarser grit that removes it faster, and this is the one that we're going to make the money on this job with. When we do our patches, you can see where we've taken the fibercrete and used the additives to it and plastered in here. I like to leave it just a little bit high on the side so I can grind it and make it smooth. You want to leave a rough surface on it so we can bond, so you don't want to do a real fine trowel finish on it. When we remove the product, the existing marblecrete or whatever kind of plaster they're using, as you use the chip and hammer, you can find out where you can't tear it up anymore. And basically, if it's loose enough to tear up that, it'll come right off. So when it stops, you can actually see where we probed up here and tried to get it and it won't go any further. That gives you a good bond area right there. When we clean this up real good, wet it, and then dry it out, so put it in our concrete, then we've got a real good solid patch in here. We've identified all of our cancer spots, as you can see, and we've taken a pneumatic hammer and removed them. My next step that I prefer to do is take a pressure washer and wash everything down so I don't have any residue or dust or anything like that that's going to affect the acid etching. I let it to dry. It doesn't have to be completely dry, but I don't want any puddling on it. When we use our muriatic acid to etch this and to neutralize the surface, we're using 2 parts of water and 1 part of muriatic acid. And when we do this, we want to make sure that there's no puddles of water in there so that it'll dilute the acid, because we're looking for a boiling effect to where it's actually causing a caustic reaction with the chemicals. So we know that we've got everything washed. If we find an area that's doing a lot of blistering or bubbling, then we want to work more on it, even if we have to get to a stainless steel brush and a pole and physically work the surface with the acid on it. Once we've stabilized the surface with the acid, then we're going to go back in with our pressure washing. Once we do the pressure washing, we're going to use a 3000 psi tip pressure washer with a turbo tip on it. This will remove any of the loose product that may be on there, but it's not quite ready to come off, and it'll make sure it's a stable surface. Once we get done with that, then we'll start into our plastering.